Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We're going to get started here. I know it's bright and early, 9:45. Doing that for the benefit of all of our attendees online. I'm Jeremy Leffler. I work in the policy office in the Division of Institution and Award Support at the National Science Foundation, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all today to the NSF Grants Conference. This is our first in-person conference since fall of 2019. You know, during the years, the 4.5 years since our last in-person conference, we've held this conference virtually, allowing our audience to grow exponentially. The virtual format provided us with the opportunity to hear from many of you, giving us valuable insights into the challenges of preparing proposals and managing awards. We are thrilled to be in person again. Although our virtual events have been successful, being together here in Philadelphia is a special occasion, and we're eagerly looking forward to engaging with both our in-person guests here and also our virtual attendees. So let me talk a little bit about what the makeup of our attendees looks like. So we, for the in-person portion of this conference, you represent over 200 institutions. 43% of our attendees today are new or early stage investigators, with 28% of you being research administrators. But our virtual audience looks a little different. Registrants represent over 500 institutions, including over 100 minority-serving institutions. 61% of our virtual audience are research administrators, and 13% are new or early-stage investigators. So before I do move on, I do want to encourage folks here in person to download the conference mobile app. You can open the App Store or Google Play Store and search for NSF Grants Conference. The app will allow you to fully participate in sessions by taking polls, submitting questions, and completing feedback surveys. You'll be able to create your own agenda, get notifications regarding the schedule, and access all of the presentations over the next 2.5 days. Our virtual audience is also welcome to download the mobile app, but the virtual experience is best experienced on your desktop computer. For anyone that is attending here in person, you can ask questions by coming to one of the 3 standing microphones. There's one on each side and one in the middle of the room. And we do ask that you use those microphones so that not only everyone in the room can hear you, but also our online participants as well. So what do we want you to get out of this conference? We want you to understand NSF, to know what we fund, and know how to prepare a good proposal. We want you to understand the merit review process at NSF, because knowing how that process works can in turn help you prepare better proposals. So if I can ask with a show of hands, how many of you are faculty or researchers? Okay, and how many of you are research administrators? Well, we have a good mix from NSF as well. There are 26 of us staff here that represent all corners of the foundation, and we're here as resources for you. Each NSF Directorate is represented here, and we have representatives from other offices, including the Director's Office, the Office of Integrative Activities, the Office of International Science and Engineering, as well as the Office of the Inspector General. We also have a number of staff from the Office of Budget, Finance, and Award Management. We are policy specialists, grant specialists, accountants, and cost analysts. And last but not least, we are also thrilled to have 2 representatives from the National Institutes of Health with us here today, or for this week, and they will be presenting alongside NSF tomorrow at the research.gov and Science CV session. The agenda has been structured in such a way that you have access to us for the duration of the conference. We want you to ask us questions during the sessions. We've built in a lot of time for the sessions for you to ask us questions. Come up to us at breaks, during lunch, and even on the event app. So this year's agenda is a little different than previous in-person grants conferences. We are live streaming every session of this conference so we can reach as many people as possible. To begin today, we'll be covering the proposal preparation process. After lunch, we'll review the merit review process, and then we'll move into a round of concurrent sessions. The session that concludes the day today covers award management, and no, that's not just for the research administrators that raised their hands this morning. Just because you receive an award from NSF does not mean that your relationship with us has ended. On the contrary. This session will give you all the tools you need to understand the full life cycle of an NSF award from the moment you receive that award notice until you submit your final annual report. That will be followed this evening by a reception just outside the room here and on the patio. Tomorrow will be structured a bit differently with a number of concurrent sessions in addition to some plenary sessions. In the morning tomorrow, we'll be covering a proposal and award policy update. That will be followed by the research.gov and science CV session. After lunch, we'll be hearing more from NSF's directorates. And we will host sessions covering financial management updates, research security policy updates, and highlights of the work of the Office of the Inspector General, the International Science and Engineering, and the Office of Integrative Activities. On Wednesday, we'll wrap up the conference with final presentations from NSF directorates, a session on cost allowability and post-award oversight, and we'll conclude the conference with a session for everyone on the NSF Faculty Early Career Development Program, known as the NSF Career Program. So just in closing, we're happy and excited that you can join us. We've been conducting these conferences since 1993. They started as small single-day events with a handful of program staff, and now we're conducting multi-day events with many NSF staff members and thousands of attendees. Throughout the event, please be sure to take the session surveys and give us your honest feedback. Both in-person and virtual attendees can access the surveys by clicking on the session feedback button in the event app. And I want to take a moment now to ask all of the NSF staff who are presenting over the next 3 days to please come up to the front of the room. Right in front of the stage here, if you can come up, we're going to pass a microphone around. We want you to see who we are, so you know who to ask questions to. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then we're going to move into our first plenary session here. So we're going to start down here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jorge Valdez-Croft. I'm a program director in the Directorate for Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences, program officer for linguistics, dynamic language infrastructure, documenting endangered languages, and the Build and Broaden programs.
Sorry I was late to the party here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Leroy Jones II. I'm a program officer in the Directorate for STEM Education, and I am also in the Division of Equity for Excellence in STEM. Looking forward to engaging with you over the next couple of days.
Good morning. My name is Tricia Van Zandt, and I am a program director in the Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences Directorate, the Behavioral and Cognitive Sciences Division. My program is Human Networks and Data Science.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rochelle Ray. I'm a branch chief in the Division of Institution and Award Support that houses the Policy Office and also the Systems Office. My branch covers audit resolution of OIG and single audits and post-award oversight activities. Welcome.
Speaking of audit resolution, my name is Philip Emsweiler. I'm an audit manager in the Office of Audits, the Office of the Inspector General. You'll be hearing about us tomorrow, about what the IG's role is within NSF, and if you hear from us, what you might expect.
How do I follow that? I'm Justin Pohl, and I'm the branch chief of our Payments and Analytics branch in the Division of Financial Management. We operate the Award Cash Management Service, and we process all of your payments. And we collect different financial reports.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Shaw. I am the financial management specialist for, sorry, this is my first time. So for the Division of Payments Analytics Branch. So I will be assisting tomorrow with how your process goes through. Nice meeting you all.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Samantha Bruton-Hunter, Senior Grant Policy Specialist in the Policy Office in the Division of Institution Award Support. Also my first time.
Yeah. Not really.
No, it's not. Nowhere near, but it's okay. Good to see you all. Welcome, and happy to have so many people here in person and online as well. Thanks.
Good morning. Jonathan Braxton, Division of Grants and Agreements, and I'm a Financial Staff Associate. Thanks for being here.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Yee, and I'm the point person here to talk about research.gov, the integration with grants.gov, and anything IT related. So if you've ever had a serious IT issue with NSF, you probably talk to me.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Vaselli. I'm the head of the Systems Office, also in the Division of Institution and Award Support. You heard from Rochelle and Samantha and Jeremy. We're all in the same division together. My job is largely my team and I are responsible for the awards management system, which is a system that Jonathan's group uses to actually approve all of your awards. And I'm here today to tell you to talk to Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Sam Shiner. I'm in the Biological Sciences Directorate. My home division is Division of Environmental Biology, but I can answer questions pretty much from across all of bio. This is not my first rodeo. In the before times, I had done quite a few of these.
Good morning. I'm Bart Trawick. I'm one of the NIH guests. I'm thrilled to be here with our NSF friends and colleagues. I run the Science CV system. As Jeremy mentioned, we're doing a session on that tomorrow. However, we're going to be here all day today, all day tomorrow at a table right outside this ballroom. We're here ready to assist, answer any questions, and help you any way that we can.
And he's got candy.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Sherry Bailey. I am the Customer Success Manager for Science CV. Again, I can't outdo Bart. We will be right outside. Anything that can make your experience more pleasant, come talk to us. Any pain points, come talk to us. I look forward to meeting each one of you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rebecca Hermanowitz. I am an attorney in the Office of General Counsel. I am, in particular, an ethics attorney. So what I work on are conflicts of interest, both financial and personal, and I'm going to be able to talk to you all about how we do our very best to prevent any conflicts. I also do have a colleague here, Eric Mulch, way back in the corner trying to hide. He's not speaking here, but he's our second attorney and representative from Office of General Counsel. So if you have any legal-related questions, he might be the one who might be able to best assist you, but we're here to help and talk to you as much as possible.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Kate Flanley. I am a program director with the Office of International Science and Engineering, and we sit in the Office of the Director. I have a session tomorrow where we'll be talking about how you can engage in international research, as well as some of our targeted programs, as well as our bilateral and multilateral initiatives. So enjoy the conference.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name's Carol Reed. I'm a program director in the Directorate for Engineering, and my division is CBET. We're all about acronyms here: Chemical, Bioengineering, Environmental, and Transport Systems. And so I'll be talking about the Engineering Directorate tomorrow. And on another hat, I'll be talking about the career program, because I work with a group of my colleagues to help run the career program across the foundation. And just another advertisement: on Friday, if you haven't signed up, there's another webinar for the career program on the logistics of submitting. So check that out on research.gov.
Sorry, I'm really short. I'm Alicia Needler. I'm the head of the Office of Integrative Activities here at NSF. If that directorate or office you've never heard of OIA, you will learn about OIA at this meeting. I will be speaking. Oh, well, that's ominous, isn't it? All right, lights back on. We will reveal so much about OIA at this meeting. But I know you've heard about our programs, the Major Research Instrumentation Program. We do have a colleague out in the audience, Jonathan Friedman, who's here to talk about MRI with me today. STC, Growing Convergence Research. You've heard about many of our programs, including Granted. And so we're excited to be here and join you today.
It's even brighter right now. I'm Leonard Spino. I'm a program director in Mathematical Physical Sciences Directorate and Division of Materials Research. And I'm working in the National Facility Instrumentation Program. And today at 3 o'clock, I'm going to give the MPS-centric presentation. I'll be happy to answer any question you may have during all this conference. Welcome, everybody. Thank you.
I think we got almost everybody. We still have some program staff who are on their way. Do we? Yeah, we have some folks hiding back here, and they're gonna introduce themselves in a second. I didn't forget about them. Thank you all. Thank you for introducing yourselves, and please approach all of us. So I didn't forget about these folks, and we are going to get started right in with the proposal preparation session. There are a couple of things I just want to mention again before I turn it over to them, and that is, again, when you have questions, please you don't have to wait till the end of the session. You can come right up to one of the 3 microphones here and ask your question. If you're online, submit your question online, and we will see that as well. For our virtual attendees, you click the Q&A icon on the left side of your screen to submit a question. And also that's where you'll see access to the polls and everything for all of the sessions. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues on the panel, the proposal preparation panel, and don't forget to introduce yourselves. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. I also am delighted to see everyone here, and even more importantly, to do this both virtually as hybrid as well as in person, because we certainly know the benefits of both options to the NSF research community. My name is Jean Feldman. I started as a very young 1-year-old at NSF because this is my 50th in-person NSF Grants Conference. Sam Hunter has been with me for just about all of those, so she was lying when she said this was her first one. I had the policy office at NSF. You already heard about, it's in the Division of Institution and Award Support. And you'll be hearing a lot more about our office as we go through this conference, so welcome everyone.
Are these working?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good morning. My name is Carol Bessel. I'm the section head for the Division of Translational Impacts in the new Directorate, which is the Directorate for Technology, Innovation, and Partnerships. And so I look forward to speaking with you this morning, but also at 3 o'clock this afternoon, if anyone's interested in what happens in the TIP Directorate, which is the small business, I-Core, POSE, engines, you name it. So we're really excited to be here today. Thanks.
All right, and I'm Jennifer Wade. I'm a program director in the Division of Earth Sciences, specifically for petrology and geochemistry, although I've worn a lot of hats in my 13 years. So I'll be part of the session today, and also I'll be running the Directorate for Geosciences session, which I think is Wednesday morning. All right, that's us.
One more comment to make. That Carol, she's very shy sometimes about announcing what kind of ability she has. She is one of the few of our program directors that really has served a long career in a research directorate at NSF, as well as with small businesses. And that intersection between the two, as you can understand, is only growing greatly at the National Science Foundation. So if you have questions about those relationships and intersections, Carol certainly can help you navigate through those. So.
All right. Okay. So today we are going to talk about a few things: finding funding opportunities, the PAPPG, the Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide, the different kinds of proposal submissions, the sections of an NSF proposal. We're going to talk about mentoring plans broadly, and then data management and sharing plans. And at the top of this slide, you can see this in quotes, ask early, ask often. This is like the theme of every single thing that you will hear for the next 3 days. If you have a question, you're not sure about something, don't rely on the advice of some faculty member in your department who's told you that this is how it worked 20 years ago. Just ask us. We are here to help. So ask questions. We want you to succeed. We want to help clarify. That's why we're here. All right, let's get into it. Okay, one of the most fundamental questions that we hear from especially early career people, but really anyone who's exploring NSF is sort of, how do I figure out where I fit? Where do I find who to even submit to, where to even submit? And so we just want to walk through a couple quick pieces of our website, which we know can be sometimes a little confounding, but it's getting a lot better. So first, if you click up here on the Find Funding and Apply, it's going to bring up a couple of things. You can sort of filter by what you're interested in, what kinds of awards, what directorate, if you know which directorate you want to go to. Education level, maybe you're specifically interested in opportunities for undergrads or postdocs. All of that you can filter for here. You can also, if you go to the award search page, this I think is one of the most useful tools on the website. If you work on anything, say you work on watersheds, you just type watersheds in this box, and it's going to pull up a list of every single award that NSF has made on that topic. And you can open it, you can read how much money did they get, what program funded it. This can really help you figure out what program to go to. It'll tell you a lot of things. So it's a simple thing, simple page, but super useful if you're just trying to get an overview of like, where do I belong? You can also find a search feature in grants.gov, which is the other way to get at NSF grants, but also any other agency in the government. This is a great place to figure out where you might fit. Okay, so now you've figured out which program you want to submit to. You want to start preparing a proposal. The first and most important document of your life is the PAPPG. Keep it with you. Keep it open. Keep a PDF of it everywhere. Think about it all the time, like we do. This is for you. It's for administrators. It's for PIs. And it's also for us. I probably consult this document 3 times a day if I'm answering questions or trying to figure out how to do something. Cannot overstate the importance of the PAPPG. And it's broken into 2 pieces. So part 1 is about proposal preparation and submission, and part 2 is about award and administration. So this is going to be the foundation of sort of what we talk about today. So as I said, it provides the guidance for preparation and submission of proposals. It will tell you how those proposals are going to be reviewed. It will also tell you why a proposal might not be reviewed. It might be returned without review. Make sure you pay attention to those pieces. It talks about the process for withdrawals, for returns, for declinations. And then if you do get an award, it tells you how to manage the finances, the reporting, the administrative pieces of every part of having an award from NSF. Okay, I'm going to walk through the proposal life cycle because I think it's useful to sort of understand. You send your proposal to us, and then like what happens? Okay, so first, the organization and you as a PI submit this proposal in research.gov. It gets compliance checked, mostly automated, but there's a lot of compliance checking that happens in the program level, and then it comes to me, the program director, or one of my colleagues. And then we're the ones that take control of this proposal. Then it goes through merit review. There's a whole other session about merit review. We're not going to get into the details of that today, but it will either be sent out for ad hoc review. So these are experts in the field that we ask to review that proposal. We might convene a panel of experts to come to NSF, either virtually in person, and talk about the proposal. Or the way that we do it in my program, we do a combination of both. We'll send a proposal out for ad hoc review, and then we convene a panel of experts who read the proposal and those reviews, talk about it, and write a panel summary, give us a recommendation. Or not a recommendation, they give us advice. And then there's also internal review. So some proposals don't need to go out for external review. These are conference proposals that are under a certain limit number, eagers, rapids, things like this that we might not need to send out for review. Supplements, those are another kind. So, okay, merit review happens. And then the program director makes a recommendation to either award this or decline this. And then the division director, so we have to write up a whole thing. It's quite a process. You gotta write this document. We send it to our division director and they concur, they agree. At that stage, that's when, back at the organization and the PI, they get access to the reviews, the panel summary, probably some PO comments that might talk about sort of how the decision went. If this is a decline, that's where it ends. You get your feedback, and then maybe you reach out to the program director about what your next steps are. If it's an award, it keeps going. Oh, sorry, yeah, right. See, last step for the decline, forgot about that arrow. If it's an award, then it goes, once it's DD concurred, it goes to the Division of Grants and Agreements. And they're the ones, they check, make sure our budget math is correct, make sure that everything that we're recommending for this award is good. And then they're the ones who finally make the award back to the organization and the institution. And this takes about 6 months. So if you're a PI and you're thinking, how long do I need to, how long should I wait before I bug my program director about my proposal? So on average at NSF, it takes 6 months to review a proposal. Sometimes it's faster. Sometimes, like right now, I'll be honest, it's a lot slower because we don't have a budget yet. so a lot of things are on hold. So it varies. It can take a little longer. But on average, we try to get you an answer in 6 months. So try to hold off on bugging somebody, unless it's a rapid, for 6 months. Okay. Oh, I had that too. Can you tell I redesigned the slide recently? So, right. And with the scale, along the bottom, I want to talk about this timeline. It says 90 days for proposal preparation and submission. This is really going to vary, but basically any new solicitation that comes out, a new target date, you'll have at least 90 days before that proposal is due. And then again, as I said, the 6 months to review it. And then once our recommendation goes to the Division of Grants and Agreements, they have 30 days to make that award. And sometimes that's faster, sometimes that's slower, but they're usually really good about getting it out. Okay. So there are a bunch of different kinds of funding opportunities that we want to walk through. First is a program description. So program description will tell you, here's a program, we're interested in these topics, and you just follow the guidelines that are in the PAPPG. It's pretty straightforward. There's also a program announcement. Similarly, it's an announcement of an opportunity. The PAPPG guidelines are what you want to follow. The majority, I think, of opportunities at NSF are program solicitations, at least in Geo. That's
Program solicitations and DCLs are the most frequently used.
Yeah, so they're pretty common, and while the instructions of the PAPPG, of course, are there, they might have a bunch of other things that sort of supersede what's happening in the PAPPG. So just as an example, my program is a solicitation. We allow for a little bit of deviation in the letters of collaboration. We require a field safety protocol because we have people traipsing up volcanoes. We have a couple of other things that you can do. So solicitations might have extra page lengths that you can add into the program description. So there are all these different variations. If you're submitting to a solicitation, you want to make sure that you understand both requirements because both need to be met when you submit the proposal. And then a Dear Colleague letter will come out as an opportunity. These might be for supplements to existing awards. They might be just an expression of interest in some special topic. Again, I'm very geocentric today because that's where I am, but we have one about critical minerals, right? There's a Dear Colleague letter expressing an interest in that topic area. Maybe something happens in the world that we want to fund a bunch of rapids. These are like rapid response to some natural disaster that has occurred. So those are Dear Colleague letters. Again, you want to follow whatever's in the DCL plus the PAPPG. All right. So how do you decide which funding opportunity? What do you want to pay attention to when you're deciding how to get your proposal together? So the first thing is, what is the goal of the program? This is the most fundamental piece, right? Is what you want to do in line with the goal of that program. And this could be both in terms of what your research is, what infrastructure you want to use or build, and what your broader impacts are. Maybe there's educational opportunities, educational activities that are really within scope of this program. So do they fit? Then the eligibility. So are you, as an individual, is your institution or business or entity, whatever you're submitting from, are you even eligible to submit to this opportunity? This can be even as nuanced as some solicitations say only X number of people from one institution can submit, or again, to use my program as an example, you can only submit 3 proposals as PI per year to my program. So make sure you're looking at those eligibility things before you go through the process of getting a proposal together. And then again, are there special preparation or award requirements that you need to pay attention to before you submit? Jean, do you want to add something?
Yeah, and she made a very important point. Jen made a very important point earlier because she used the word solicitation. And you saw that we did 4 types of funding opportunities, which I can tell you, working very closely with many other federal research funding agencies, we are really unique in having that many different types of ability, and that provides a lot of flexibility for NSF programs to do things in different ways. But you heard that word solicitation, so when you see that, you're looking for an opportunity at NSF and you see a program solicitation, pay very close attention because that is really a document that can really either supplement or deviate from the requirements in the PAP guide. And so you want to make sure you're reading closely what those requirements are so you know where and if it might deviate from what we standardly do. And you will also notice already that we are practically the only human beings that can say a sentence with no words at all and have it be all acronyms. So we are trying very hard to make sure that we use those as limited as possible because we can't speak without
I don't know what you mean, Jean.
words.
All right, well, speaking of solicitations, let us walk through one. So here's an example cover page of a solicitation. We can show you sort of what to look for. This happens to be career. It'll tell you, first at the top, document history. When was it posted? Make sure you're looking at the current solicitation because sometimes we update them and there will be like a little, I forget what color, orange bar at the top that says, this has been archived. Go to this one. Look for that. Make sure you are looking at the most recent solicitation. Just like the PAPPG, by the way. PAPPG is updated every year. Make sure you're looking at the right PAPPG. Okay, it will tell you which directorates and offices are participating in that solicitation. It will tell you if there's a deadline. And I forget if we talk about this here, but there are different kinds of deadlines. Yes, I think you're going to walk through it later. Okay, so it'll tell you if there's a deadline or not. Okay, it will also give you some information about the awards themselves. So how many awards does this program expect to make? And how much funding, this is not $250 million per award, this is how much money does the program have or how do they expect to be able to spend this year? So you can sort of work out the average size of an award. Although again, this really varies, especially for like career, this really varies depending on which program you're submitting to. And so always talk to the program director if you're not sure the scale of proposal to submit. Okay. And then you keep going down the solicitation, it's going to tell you, remember we talked about eligibility. So who can submit? What kinds of institutions, organizations can submit? Who can serve as PI? For instance, career, there's only one PI. You cannot have co-PIs on career proposal. If there's a limit on per organization, and again, a limit on proposals per PI. So this will really tell you, before you go through the work of writing a proposal, are you eligible to submit? All right, and Carol, I think it's over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'll take a second pause to see if anyone has any questions. Oh, we're doing? Okay, very good. So as we go through the types of proposals that you might submit, there's several types, and they all have different emphases that you might really need to think about as you're submitting. So the first one we'll talk about is a concept outline. So a concept outline is a concise summary of your project idea, and it has to be really concise. So that doesn't mean that you can do it quickly. That actually means sometimes it takes longer because you have to really think about what you're going to say and conserve your words so that it's very, very to the point and you tell the story that you want to get across. So it has information like PI, institution information, project title, keywords. But here we're really looking at, is your project suitable for this particular funding opportunity? And so we really want you to think about reading the solicitation and understanding, what is the main premise here and do you actually fall into this category? So what we're looking for when you submit a concept outline is your idea appropriate for NSF? And so a program director will read your concept outline and you can submit that either by email or by what we call the Program Suitability and Proposal Concept Prospect forms. So one way or another, you'll submit that. Somebody will read it. They'll decide if your project is suitable, and then they'll give you feedback. So it's either yes or no. If it's no, I'm sorry that you can't go forward and submit a full proposal. If it's yes, then we'll look forward to the next iteration in the cycle. You're also able to submit a concept outline if you're looking for early feedback on your proposal or your idea. So that's a very useful thing, but to be honest, you need to get that in like way in advance of any submission date so that the program director is not kind of running through a bunch of these on the day before the solicitation deadline. So please, consider this carefully. We are trying with concept outlines to make sure that you're not wasting your time submitting to something that's really not in the swim lane. So again, be very careful and be thoughtful when you're submitting these. It looks short, but it means more time sometimes. Okay, letters of intent. So letters of intent are a bit similar to concept outlines. So they're telling the program directors that you're intending to submit a proposal in this solicitation. That allows the program directors to think about conflicts of interest. It allows them to kind of think about the organizations that are coming in and what the topics are so that they can start getting ready to, how many panels do they need, what the reviewers might be. It helps us gauge, how many people are coming into this. Should we do more outreach? Should we, cut it back? So again, these are pretty simple documents, but it does have a deadline, 5 p.m. submitter's local time. So make sure you get them in on time. Make sure that everybody who's part of this organization, this project, is included because, again, we're looking to find conflicts of interest and panelists and reviewers. So if we don't know who's coming in, that doesn't help us very much. It's a one-page synopsis, so you got to be brief and you got to be to the point. And then it's not externally evaluated. So again, this one, it has to be submitted or you're not allowed to submit the full proposal, but you don't get a yes or no vote. You're just telling us what you're doing. So it's your kind of ticket, but it's not going to be graded. It's a freebie.
Can I make one clarifying
Yes,
comment?
please,
And not every
absolutely.
solicitation requires a letter of intent.
Oh, thank you.
So most don't. So, but if they do, it will be spelled out very clearly in that solicitation or funding opportunity. But it's not. I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
thank
Not
you.
required.
No worries.
And I see hands up.
Okay, sure. Yes.
Yeah, can you speak a bit louder, Jeremy? How about
This one. Okay.
Yeah, that one's
So, yeah, we're figuring out this new system here. So we do have a few questions from online. So let me just ask this question here. They're asking, and we're going back a couple slides, but you don't have to move them. But what is the best way to submit a proposal that aligns with the topics that are described in a Dear Colleague letter? The detailed submission process is usually not as specific in the Dear Colleague letter. So what would their next step be?
Sure. So most Dear Colleague letters, excellent question. Most Dear Colleague letters will say,
submit to the program most appropriate. It will list which programs are participating in that Dear Colleague letter, and then you go to that program page and see what the requirements are. Does it have a deadline? Does it not have a deadline? So most Dear Colleague letters should point you to the program to which you're submitting with instructions for how to submit. If it doesn't, ask the program director. So there will always be an email listed on the Dear Colleague letter. You can always ask them, but it should point you to where it needs to be. And when in doubt, like if it just is a supplement opportunity or some other things, sometimes you just submit to the PAPPG 24-1. But that should be spelled out in the Dear Colleague letter.
Another way that we heavily use Dear Colleague letters are for funding they are opportunities for the types of proposals that are listed in Chapter 2F, which is other types of proposals. So we've been using these acronyms: planning, rapid, eager, raise. They're all types of funding opportunities beyond a research proposal that is typically submitted. And so those will, because you're not submitting to a solicitation, they will have very precise description of what the process would look like, what's got to be in that particular proposal, following the PAP guide instructions, and how and where it's actually submitted to NSF.
Okay, and sticking with Dear Colleague letters, can you only request a supplement after NSF issues a Dear Colleague letter inviting a supplement? Or can you request one at any point?
There are a lot of different kinds of supplements. That's a good question. So no, you don't have to have a Dear Colleague letter inviting a supplement opportunity. You might be, maybe you have a great undergrad in your lab and you'd like some research experience for undergraduate funding for the summer for them. You can just reach out to your program director and say, hey, can I submit the supplement request? This is very niche, but maybe you did a bunch of work in Argentina and then you can't ship those samples home. You need a little extra money to ship those samples back. All of these little things that come up during the course of a project, just talk to your cognizant program director about whether there's an opportunity. But yes, there are some Dear Colleague letters for like internships or all kinds of things that might involve a supplement that will tell you how to request that funds. But not every supplement requires communication first.
So I would say the one rule that people forget is that you can't get a supplement until you have a grant.
That's one point.
So let me just make that clear. It's a niggling point. But so if you have an NSF grant, we can give you additional bits of money for travel and equipment failure and all kinds of stuff. But you can't apply to a Dear Colleague letter for a supplement if you don't have a grant to start with.
Excellent point.
All right. Yes. Mm-hmm. No.
This one may be for the proposal, not proposal, but the merit review session, but you mentioned the types of reviews. So what determines whether a proposal, or what type of review it gets?
I think that one we should probably leave to the merit review session because they are specifically going into that particular coverage, and we'll answer that. And let me also say we generically cover supplemental funding requests in the PAP guide, and we say small amounts of funding and up to 6 months of support may be available. So you can do it at any time. However, it really is, depending on the time of year, a very good idea to contact your cognizant program officer because they may be at a point where they may have to say, you may want to wait on that until the next fiscal year if we've already gone through spending of all the funds for that particular fiscal year. So that's the only word of advice I'd provide on that.
Any other questions? Anyone in the room? All right. Okay. All right. So we're going to keep on the theme of types of proposal submissions. And this is a preliminary proposal. And so sometimes they're required, sometimes they're optional. Thank you. These go into research.gov, and they are in the proposal preparation modules. So if you've already played in there a little bit, you know how to do that. Again, these have a deadline. It's usually 5 p.m. submitting organizations or submitting time. These are binding or not binding, depending on what's written in the process. Okay, so the purpose here, Why do we ask for these? We want to reduce PI's unnecessary effort if you're not on track. So make sure that you're reading the offering before you go deep dive into the preliminary proposal. We want to increase the quality of the full submission so you get some feedback when you submit a preliminary proposal, and that's kind of a nice thing. Unlike the letters of intent, you just kind of put it in the put it over the bow. This one you'll actually get some feedback, and it helps NSF manage the review process with reviewer selection and things like that. So you can get two outcomes from preliminary proposals. One is the invite, not invite, and that means it's been reviewed and NSF's decision is final. But you're, either thumbs up, invite, you get a full proposal, thumbs down, it stops there. So you're not wasting your time filling in 15 pages when it's not a chance. I will get to your question in just one second.
No, it's just
go ahead.
speaking. Can you move the mic more to the center? Yes. Thank you.
Better? Okay,
Yes,
sorry.
thank you.
And then there's encourage and not encourage. So these are not binding. If you get encourage or discouraged, not encourage, and you want to submit anyway, just be aware that people have already kind of thought that this may not be appropriate. So maybe really think about your concept before you go much further. But
and listen to the advice you're given, because reviewers have weighed in on it. So in order, you may decide you want to go ahead with that submission, but definitely listen to the advice of those reviewers before and consider that before submission of a full proposal.
That's good. Okay. So I'm going to move on. So now that you have your type of submission, and obviously there's full proposals, we won't talk about that right now. Yes? No?
Sam?
Yes. Are there any drawbacks or benefits to submitting your proposal via grants.gov versus research.gov?
Not to me.
I'm not allowed
That
to
was
say
not
that.
NSF's response.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say that, but there is that man over there that just made a very profound statement. And so we're going to move on. I will tell you that the percentages are less than 1% of proposals submitted to NSF are submitted via grants.gov.
Research.gov is a very friendly system.
Use that data to help make your decision.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Oh, yes, please.
My name is Tahat Trivedi. I don't know if it's working. Is it working? Okay. Okay, so is it working now?
Yes.
Okay.
Now you
So, okay, thank you. So for DCL, I had a question. So I know you mentioned that in the initial DCL announcement, there will be some programs which will be listed. But for an example, that have, like, hypothetically speaking, if there's one program which really I like to work on, which is not listed in there, can I reach out to the PO and say that, is it possible that you guys are collaborating on this DCL? Okay.
You can talk to that program officer, and certainly they may provide other opportunities for you to consider.
Okay.
But they would need to be added to that funding DCL in the future for you to actually submit.
So in that case, DCL will be updated.
Well, not necessarily always.
Not that year, next year, or if it does.
I'll say this.
Yes. Okay,
It's great feedback as a program director.
Yeah.
It's great feedback to hear from the community, hey, we see ourselves in this DCL, because then I can carry that to my management and say, why aren't we on this DCL? If I agree that it should be. So have that conversation, but don't have an expectation that it will be added.
Yes, just
who knows?
wanted to,
Right,
is it
but for that particular DCL, you would not be able to submit.
Okay.
And to that question, is it okay to reach out? It is always okay to reach out.
Perfect.
Please
Thank you.
reach out.
Thank you very much.
Okay, sure.
Hi, thank you so much for the helpful session. Then in addition to the opportunity for receiving feedback through the preliminary proposal, are there any external reviewer from NSF that if we have a support from our institution, for example, if they support us for paying a fee for the external reviewer through the NSF for that specific program that we apply for to increase the chance of acceptance or not?
I think I understand the question. Is there any fee?
External reviewer before actually submitting the final proposal. Through the NSF, for example, review panel or committee that we can have the chance.
And include
receiving
external
feedback.
reviewers? Is that the question?
Sorry,
I think
go
it's
ahead.
like a. So I think you're asking, is there a service that will review your proposal before it comes to NSF and you can pay a fee?
Like if we have a support from our
Right,
institution
yeah.
for having like a external support for the external reviewer, then is there any type of kind of services that we can use from NSF or?
Yeah, we don't have any way of saying these people give good advice for you to prepare your proposals and these people don't, or so we're pretty agnostic on that. To be honest, I think your best bet, and this is my personal advice, is to talk to your program director rather than somebody who has a fee for service kind of thing.
Then what's the rationale behind the fact if we have like a support for the external reviewer from the institution, then those external reviewers are supposed to help us for providing earlier stage feedback, am I right?
People do that. I mean, there certainly is services that will read your proposals and give you feedback and things like that, but we don't endorse anyone, and we would like you to talk to us.
For the program, that the preliminary proposal are not required, then we are encouraged to just send like a one-page summary, not more than that, am I right? Or even we are allowed to actually send more, but based on how much feedback we receive from the program officer.
So a lot of program directors don't mind receiving we call it a white paper or concept paper, to give you feedback about whether it's suitable for their program. Again, you have to do that well in advance of any deadline so that they have enough time to review it. And then usually it's a phone call to say maybe, or maybe try this other group. This is what we're doing today and tomorrow and the next day. So you have lots of people around to kind of do that with us right now.
Yeah.
So, feel free, but you can also call, or it's always good to get, as a program, when I was a program director, I like to read something first and then talk to someone, so I felt more prepared to make comments.
And what happened if, for example, we reach out to the program officer ahead of time, but they guide us that, in the last week, 1 week, close to the deadline, they will provide the feedback. And sometimes, it's kind of very late that, those changes cannot happen at the...
But, I have to say, as a program director, it's not part of the merit review process unless it's spelled out in the opportunity for you to get that feedback. And some programs don't provide feedback because they see it as a fairness issue and an equity issue, that not everyone is comfortable reaching out. Not everybody is prepared to send that one pager. So it's important to figure out, talk to the program director that you're submitting to, whether they even will entertain that. Because again, it's not part of the process as NSF has laid it out. And so if it's not written into the guidelines, there really can't be, and I hope it's okay that I say this, it's not an expectation of getting fit. Yeah. Okay.
So then what are the different venues that to receiving more feedback? Thank you so much.
Yes. Right. And if you continue to have those kind of questions, you may want to talk to your cognizant program officer that's going to be at their breakout session.
Yep.
Okay. Go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Director, for taking our questions. I'm Yang Ming from RRT. I got a quick question about the program. So for most of the solicitation, I can see a lot of divisions are listed. But when I dig deep into that, certain programs never found certain opportunities, while other programs tend to fund a lot. I'm trying to understand if there a preference or it's just a bad chance no good proposal was within that program.
I would say that's, if you don't see the programs that you expect to be supporting it, talk to that program director and say, can you explain why? There may be some reason about fit or that your perception of this topic fits in this area doesn't match with the programs. Always talk to the program director about that. That's very hard to make a general statement about.
Okay, so there's a follow-up question. Is there a budget reason? For example, when you have the budget for that facilitation, would you allocate the budget to certain divisions, or that's a joint decision?
That varies across the group. That varies from opportunity to opportunity. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
And we need one more, and we have to move on because we have a whole bunch more to cover.
Sure. What's the difference between program director and program officer?
Nothing.
Nothing. Program director, program manager, program officer, same thing.
And how can I get access to a successfully submitted proposal? Is it possible to do so?
No. Unless your colleagues will share, you can ask your colleagues to share.
Well, the first thing to do is go to the PI, absolutely. Then we have another process called the Freedom of Information Act, and that's run out of our Office of the General Counsel. However, the very best thing to do is go to the PI.
Thank you.
And I would say a lot of the career workshops, if you're interested in those, they have mock panels with people donate their proposals, so you can get a look at what has been submitted before. Okay, I'm going to go quickly now so that we have some time, but please, feel free to ask questions. So we're talking about no deadlines. So you always have to be cognizant. We talked about 5 o'clock, submitter's time. We really mean that. That's 5 o'clock. So please submit early. If you have technical problems, you have to call IT and get a ticket number, because we're not going to say, oh, yeah, sorry, it took 2 hours to upload and you get extra time. Sorry. But this is a program, no deadlines, so the proposals can be submitted anytime. The last deadline is an actual deadline in the I guess there's no deadlines, but
no deadlines.
So yes, so several groups, community directorates are going to no deadlines. I would submit earlier though in the year. If you're waiting until June, we have to spend out by August, so that's kind of too late for this year. Be prepared to wait. Next one. Okay, target dates. Target dates. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page. Target dates do have what they're calling a deadline, but you can exceed it. And it would be kind to let your program director know that you're going to probably do that. And I wouldn't go too far past it, because then you may miss the panel or the window that it's going to be reviewed at. So it's a little bit of flexibility. Deadline dates are truly deadline dates. So, it's usually 5 p.m. submitters local time. For small businesses, it's submitting organizations local time. So you can have the possibility of going beyond a deadline if you have, a natural or some kind of horrible, thank you, extreme event, hurricanes, power outages, but these are usually region-wide, if not, at least university-wide. And if you know about them in advance, the storm is coming, you can talk to your program director and get a little bit of a delay, and they'll give you usually a written something to put into your proposal. It's a request authorization to deviate from the deadline. So you'll put that in there. Let's see, if you are submitting on a weekend, if the deadline's on a weekend, it's extended to Monday. If it's a holiday, it's the next business day. And if NSF closes, which has happened, it'll be the next business day. So watch the deadlines, but that's really strict. It could be 5:01 and you're done. So please get that in early. Submission windows. The end date of the submission window is a deadline, but other than that, you can submit any time in that period, and people will kind of gather up the proposals and submit for panels as they go along. I'm going to keep moving here, sorry. As Jean said, there are many other types of proposals, and we're not going to dwell too much on these. Planning grants are for people to, get their teams together, prepare for bigger projects. Rapid response research sounds like rapid. If you're, need to get gases from a volcano, you need to get to Iceland right now, that's a rapid. early concept grants for exploratory research. So these are high risk, high payoff projects. Probably won't do well in external review for some reason, and you got to kind of convince the program director what that reason might be. So it sounds easy, but it's difficult. Those are $300K for up to 2 years. We have raises up to $1 million for up to 5 years. Those are interdisciplinary projects. Goalies are working with industry, conferences and workshops. You know about those, equipment, travel, etc. So we'd be happy to talk to you about these in more detail, but they're pretty specialized.
The only thing important to note is that in almost every one of these other types of proposals, the proposal preparation guidelines are different. So you have to be very careful to look at what Chapter 2F of the PAP Guide says to make sure you are following the appropriate instructions for that type of proposal. And some of these are great opportunities for faculty who they came to this conference, they're super psyched up, they want to submit to NSF, but they may not be ready for their first research proposal. So some of these other types of proposals are great opportunities.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Could you give a little bit of detail on the career-life balance?
Sure. You want to do it?
Sure.
You want me to do it?
So career-life balance, if you're PI or postdoc, I think, or grad student, I don't remember.
It's all three except
categories.
postdocs to individuals.
Okay, right, except a fellowship. If you need time away for career-life balance reasons, you can apply for funds to hire someone like to keep your lab running while you are away. It is a great opportunity. I'll say I think it's underutilized, and yeah, it can just keep your lab moving, keep your students working on stuff. Talk to your program director to make sure they have the funds to support it, but everyone that I know is pretty supportive of CLBs for sure.
And talk to your institution. The reason that's important is because they are actually submitting, and it's up to them to determine whether they believe the rationale is appropriate. You are not telling anything to NSF about what the reason is for asking for that particular career-life balance.
Right, you have to match the requirements for officially being on leave. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on. So single copy documents, just to make sure almost everything that you submit as part of your proposal goes to the reviewers, except, and there's a few things, a list of suggested reviewers. So you might suggest a few people that be appropriate to include or not to include. People you think are biased, put them on the list. Don't put in like the whole community. That would be bad. Okay. Proposal certificates, proprietary information. There's some programs like the small businesses. That's a very special thing. You can talk to me about that. Authorizations to deviate. We talked about those. That might be the natural disaster or whatever. But these are very specific, and you should know that not absolutely everything goes to the reviewers, but almost everything. And I'm going to let Jean speak on this one for a minute.
Okay, so what we have here are the required sections of what you, remember I said Chapter 2F has other important guidelines you have to follow for those types. These are the required sections of a research proposal. And we're going to be covering each of these, so I'm going in turn. So we're going to just march right in. So this is the cover sheet of an NSF proposal. When you're in research.gov and preparing your proposal, a lot of this information is auto-populated, meaning it's pre-filled. You don't even need to worry about it. There are, because it will come from other information that you've entered. A couple of things that I do want to point out to you, though, is that you will see at the bottom is a space, and it's got the names of a PI, and we allow one PI and up to 4 co-PIs. You can enter as many as you think, but the bottom line is it's only going to take 1 PI and up to 4 co-PIs. That information is automatically, if you're fortunate enough to receive an NSF award, the names of every PI and co-PI are actually identified in the actual NSF award notice. If you look at the next section, I want to point out, there's a lot of check boxes in the middle of the actual cover sheet. And these check boxes are actually very important to NSF and our process. And they fall into 4 essential categories. Some that are just informational. They give NSF some information about some things about that proposal, things like whether there are international activities and what countries, we ask what countries might be involved. Beginning investigator, and believe it or not, that's the most misunderstood. It applies only to the Biological Sciences Directorate, and only the Biological Sciences Directorate limits simultaneous submission of that proposal to NSF at one time, and meaning you can't, for example, submit the same proposal to NSF or NIH at the same time unless you are a beginning investigator or you have the advance agreement of the 2 program officers, one from NSF and one from the other agency. Doesn't happen often, but most people see beginning investigator and think, I'm an early career, I'll check that box, and it really has nothing to do with the individual. We also have categories that are about the actual impact, the processing of the proposal, and that could be like the proprietary or privileged information and what we might do there, or letting us know that there is a potential life science dual use research of concern. There are a bunch of, and what's particularly important, some of them that require advance approval, and not advance approval to actually submit the proposal. Most of these are just in time, and I'll explain what that means. But if you have human subjects, it's got to be used by the reviewed by the Institutional Review Board or vertebrate animals, the Animal Care and Use Committee. They have to approve those before NSF would actually make an award. We have a new one that actually requires review, and that's potential impacts on tribal nations, and I'll be talking about that a lot tomorrow. And then there are finally some of these that actually you have to have additional information. Things such as off-campus, off-site research. And what we mean by that is that if you have off-campus or off-site research, which means you're collecting data, information, or samples. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. I do have a tendency to move my head a lot. I'm very spastic, in case you haven't noticed. So that's why sitting down for me is the best thing. So what it means is that you really will be getting additional approval, and in this case, providing additional information. So off-campus, off-site research means you're going to have a plan for safe, inclusive working environment if you're conducting off-campus, off-site research, and that's at the institution determines whether it's off-campus or off-site. And you have to, the authorized organizational representative is certifying that they have that plan in place for that proposal. That's why these boxes may seem meaningless, but they really are not. And that little person in here that introduced themselves as the IG can come in to your institution and they can look, did you have a plan in place for that proposal for a safe and inclusive working environment when you submitted it? You don't want to be in the situation for that to happen. So we do have boxes on the cover sheet that do require that additional information, additional approvals, or telling us things we need to know to process that proposal. So, project summary. First of all, folks, this is a brief summary of 1 page that summarizes this proposal. What's exciting about that is it's the first thing a reviewer is going to see. So this is your first opportunity to get those reviewers very excited about what they're going to read in the rest of this proposal. Don't miss this opportunity to do that. It is, like I said, 1 page. It's going to have an overview statement and two terms that you're going to hear in this session and the next session, intellectual merit and broader impacts. And you're going to have a summary statement on all three of those. Again, they're brief statements, but you have to have, if you don't separately address these, it will not be accepted, meaning the system knows you haven't put anything into that box, and your authorized organizational representative can keep hitting that submit button 50 times, and it still won't let them submit because you have not provided it. But do not miss this opportunity to generate this enthusiasm. The project summary is also extremely important for NSF program officers or directors, because it helps them know, okay, this gives me an idea of the kinds of reviewers that I might need for this particular proposal. So again, something very, very important in terms of the NSF processing of this particular proposal. So bear all of those things in mind. This is not something that should be overlooked. There are schools of thought on how to do them, and neither is wrong. Some write the summary and then they take it from there and write the rest of the proposal. Others write the entire proposal and say, okay, I'm going to use that to generate the project summary. Again, neither approach is incorrect. It's based on the individual's preference of how they want to put that proposal together. So, 5 minutes, okay. Well,
Just got to the important part,
all right,
Jeremy.
folks, they've given me project description with 5 minutes, okay?
That's why I'm like, it's the most important part.
All right, so
It's just till a break, and we're going to come back with more time.
I understand. I am not a New Yorker, but I can talk very fast so we are going to just get this part started here. And obviously, this is really the backbone of the NSF proposal. And what is going to be seen here is a mixture of two sessions, the proposal preparation and merit review, because we are going in our review section to tell you that reviewers will be asked when they review that proposal to address what does the proposer want to do? Why do they want to do it? How they plan to do it? How they will know if they succeed, and what benefits could accrue if the project is successful. So if they are going to be reviewing those questions, it's very important for you to address each of those when you're writing the actual project description, which, unless and only unless the solicitation tells you otherwise, you have 15 pages to do it. And we mean 15 pages. Unless the solicitation gives you more, you're limited to that 15 pages. You say it cannot be done. We've done it since, I just happen to know, August of 1990. So we happen to know that this process does work. And in fact, in many cases, the more succinct, the better of making the arguments. Obviously, within this particular document, again, that intersection between proposal preparation and merit review is that you're going to have a separate section on broader impacts. Every proposal will be reviewed via intellectual merit and broader impacts. We're going to cover that a whole lot in our session this afternoon. And with that, I'm going to stop it, and we're going to pick up in 15 minutes, so you give me more time to talk about the project description. Thanks, everybody. See you soon. Okay, thanks, everyone. And I understand that this was very, very short to get 350 people out on a break, but we really have so much to cover. We're super excited to talk to you more about the project description. So let's continue that discussion. So as I mentioned, the project description has to have within the narrative a discussion of the broader impacts of the proposed activity. And the system will look for that. And these broader impacts, there are a listing of examples. We hesitate to use examples because many people see examples and they say, ooh, that's exactly what NSF wants, and only those examples will do. And we absolutely don't want to make that be your focus area. The creativity of this particular section is vitally important. And so broader impacts can be accomplished through the research itself, through things that are directly related to specific research projects or activities that are supported by or complementary to the project. And so this section is going to be covered a lot. I'm very proud to have Alicia Needler, who introduced ourselves. She's very much a leader in this, in the area of broader impacts at the National Science Foundation. And so they will be covering it a lot in our next session on merit review of the proposal. But as I mentioned, you have 15 pages, folks. Use it wisely. Intellectual merit, broader impacts, and all of those questions that I mentioned to you before our break. But what's not on this slide is that if you are a PI or co-PI on any NSF-funded project within the last 5 years, and that includes just about everything, you have to provide information called results from prior NSF support. And it basically tells the foundation, reviewers, what you have done with those taxpayer dollars. And that is very, very important to us. And there are a list of items that we require you to cover. And again, this is for all PIs and co-PIs on this project. You have up to 5 pages. So the natural inclination is to say the following. If you are an early career scientist, you say, see, the process is biased. You get to tell, this person or team of individuals gets to tell you everything they've done with the money, so you're more inclined to support them again. And if you are someone already funded by NSF, you say the process is biased against us, because we then lose part of our 15 pages to prepare the project description. Neither is accurate. And we're going to have the good merit review session tell you why. So, sorry, I'm going to just get you on the edge of your seat and get you excited for that. So, with that, though, I have 2, you've heard them speak already, extremely experienced program officers, and they're going to tell you, or they may be directors by title, I'm not sure. Again, it doesn't matter. They mean the same thing. They're just going to give you a sense of, they review these, they're part of your review process, what their sense of on how do you get to that good project description. So, turn it over to the both of you.
Okay, she's looking at me, so I'll start. And I'll be, in the interest of time, succinct. Jean's right, it's incredibly important. Simple things. Jean mentioned earlier the project summary is a place to get people excited about the project. You should start your project description that way too. Set up your problem at the front, whether it has a hypothesis or not. Why does this work need to be done? And why should we care? If it hasn't been done ever before, is that because it's not important? Or is it because it's such a challenge that it needs to be done? Your project description should have a work plan that really describes who is doing what. If you're asking for undergraduates, grad students, postdocs, collaborators, who is doing what? When are they doing it? All of that should be clear. And the most common mistake, it sounds so simple, but the most common mistake that I see in a project description is like you lay out this super exciting idea at the top and then talk about all the stuff that you're going to do and these analyses and you're going to do all this stuff and then never circle back to how that work answers the question that you stated at the front. Again, it sounds so obvious, most common mistake. And to Jean's point about broader impacts, they can be a lot of things, right? Could be broadening participation, could be education, you could be building infrastructure, you could be developing standards that you're going to share with the community. You could be doing work that's going to influence local policy. You could be doing all kinds of stuff. Doing one or two of those things well, instead of trying to cover like 8 of them, is a stronger proposal. And pick the things that are really well suited to you, to your team, to your institution, to the project. Like, just because your colleague over here is doing X thing does not mean that it is right for you and your project, right? So pick the things that are right, focus on developing them well. At least, I think every program director at NSF has a different philosophy about broader impacts. There's a lot of variation, but most recognize those merit review criteria that they're going to talk about in that session apply to both intellectual merit and broader impacts. And so think about that when you're preparing your proposal. I'll let Carol go for it.
Okay. So I could list, many, many things that you can do, but the secret sauce that I'd like to share with you is that 2 things make your proposal better. The one is, if you want to know about NSF proposals, become a reviewer for NSF. It's the best thing ever, right? You get to see at least, 4 to 6 to 10 or more, different flavors of proposals. You can't keep those forever, and you're not supposed to crib from them, but you do get an idea from the discussion what works and what doesn't. So, do a little bit of service if you really want to see some proposals, and it will really push you forward, especially if it's a new program that you haven't been in. Offering yourself as a reviewer is splendid. The second thing is, you don't get a chance to make the first impression. And all of our panels are really new. We don't recycle the panel, so they don't see you over and over and over again and how you've changed the proposal and stuff like that. So you have to, think about what it's like to be a reviewer reading your proposal for the first time. Define your terms. Make sure you've got something that'll definitely work and something that's more high risk. Be a reviewer and do this for each other. If you're, a research office person at your university, you can have little mock panels within your divisions or whatever, and help each other develop a network. You're here, you're going to have lunch with people, maybe find a friend that's interested in, reviewing kind of proposals that you're interested in, and just, make an agreement. You're not going to steal each other's ideas. You're going to help each other the best you can, and then, use that guidance. So somebody needs to read your proposal before you submit it, and that's really important.
And just a couple other things to add to that. So many of you, we have Intergovernmental Personnel Act employees, means we borrow your faculty members and they come into NSF. We've got a few of the NSF program staff in the audience or our IPAs or experts. When they go back to the institution, they are a wealth of information because they know, they lived, they breathed the process. So that's really, a very, very good source of someone giving you advice on that. And people are very apprehensive there. I don't want to do it. I don't want to share this with anyone because guess what? They could steal my idea. Well, guess what NSF does when we get your proposals? We share it with people. So, because that's the way the review process works. So obviously, getting that before it comes in the door is very, very important. So let's move on. Obviously, we have a section of the proposal where you have to absolutely provide reference information, and you have to acknowledge all authors and provide information on them. As stated in the particular section of the PAP guide, it's got exactly what you have to include, the names of all authors, the article, journal title, it goes on. The important point to to remind yourself of when you're preparing this is that you are using the scholarly practices of your particular discipline. So NSF, while it provides some basic guidance, it acknowledges that you really should be using what goes on in your particular discipline. And a number of years ago, we had a back and forth with our Office of the Inspector General, and they were like, no, it's got to follow this format. And we were able to come up with this great agreement that no, the discipline itself does drive how and you should be using this reference as cited. There is no page limitation. Just remember, reviewers reviewers are also looking to see if you've provided the seminal pieces of or journal articles that you've included there. Program officers also love this as a potential source of reviewers for that proposal. So really an important part, and you really must do it. You must, because if you're not recognizing the people that contributed, that could also get you into a whole lot of trouble as well. So let's go to the next section, the budget and budget justification. We've got folks who could spend this entire section on the project description. I could spend this entire session on the budget and budget justification because there's so much to it. So each proposal has to have a budget for each year of support requested. And why is this, and what do we mean when we say these things, and how is this information used? Well, there's a little piece of the merit review criteria that says the reviewers have to look at whether you have adequate resources to carry out the research as proposed. Well, where are they looking for that in an NSF proposal? Well, they're not looking at the project description. They're actually looking at the budget and budget justification, as well as another section called facilities, equipment, and other resources. And I'm going to talk about both of them. But obviously, this budget tells a lot to NSF and its reviewers in the following ways. It's a format. And just as a guide to you, this basic format is used by most federal research funding agencies. It is the one used in this thing called grants.gov to actually put together a budget. And there's a lot of great advice in the PAP guide on what you should be including, what each of these budget categories mean. And so when you fill this out in accordance with the PAP guide, because you're actually reading it, we believe you know how important it is. If you put it on the budget, little reminder, you have to put a reason in the budget justification. I wouldn't say this out loud, but some NSF program officers like to cut budgets. I wouldn't say that because they might hear it, but the bottom line is this budget justification is justifying why you need each and every dollar. Make it strong, make it compelling. There's a couple of areas in here that folks don't understand. So we have a part A of the budget, which is all the senior or / key individuals, the faculty, PIs, co-PIs, and faculty are how we define senior / key persons. And you are asking for money to support those individuals. Well, we have language in the PAP guide that says, in accordance with NSF policy, you can ask for up to 2 months across all NSF-funded projects. Okay, so that's telling you, and if you ever look at our data, yes, we generally support up to 2 months across all individuals. You can ask for more, but you need to justify why you need it. And that budget justification, the more closely you can tie that to the actual research itself, the better. Another area that people get very confused and don't understand is something called participant support. When you go to the section on audit findings, participant support is always on there. So you note that's why I'm covering it here. But people think, okay, participants, those are the people working on the project. No, they are not. Participant supports are the costs for things such as stipends, subsistence, travel, registration fees, on behalf of people who are connected with NSF-funded conferences and symposia or our training projects. It is something that is defined in federal-wide guidance. And it is very, very important that you look at that instructions in the PAP guide on this section very, very carefully, because again, number one, it's one area where people often don't get. And once you put it on that budget and NSF makes an award, you can't move $1 out of there without asking for NSF's prior approval. So again, these are individuals on conference or training activities. I will also tell you that this entire section does not encumber this little thing called indirect costs. So it is a very important part of this particular budget. So what are some of the guidelines? Well, I once sat on this panel, again, I've done 50 of these, and one of the best lines of advice I ever received was from a program officer who said, I will say it simply, ask for what you need. Ask for what you need to conduct that proposed project. Why are you doing that? Because we're asking reviewers to look at it to say, if you were conducting that research, would you use the same budget categories? And they say things like, I might ask for a piece of equipment, but not that piece of equipment. They don't need that big of a piece of equipment to do this research. They may say, they ask for 5 graduate students. They don't need 5, they need 25 if they really understand what they are proposing to do. They are asking for travel. Now, note to yourself, many of you want to go to a conference and it's in 3 years and it's the seminal conference for your discipline and you want NSF to support it, but you don't know where you're going to go in 3 years, but you have to justify it. Hint, you pick worldwide. If you do not know, you pick worldwide. But our bottom line is ask for what you need. So again, reviewers are going to be looking at it. Are those costs necessary and appropriate? Our program officers are going to be looking at that same thing. When it comes to our Division of Grants and Agreements, they're going to be looking at things like, in accordance with the cost principles, are those allowable costs? Are they allocable? So each different part of the process looks at that budget, but looks at it in a different way. And again, I cannot emphasize the justification and the establishment of the need. Now, you also heard that program solicitations can deviate, and sometimes they may specify either cost categories that would be allowable under that funding opportunity, or more importantly, the costs that may not. So if you're putting costs there and you are fortunate enough to get to the negotiation stage, you're going to hear more about that at this afternoon. But the bottom line is, those are strike through, because if the solicitation said no, you can't put that in the budget unless it's incredibly well justified, and that's very unlikely.
Jean, can I add one tiny piece to this?
Yeah.
Very quick, I promise. Ask for your broader impact support as well.
Yes.
Please include money for your broader impacts. We do not expect you to do science for free. We do not expect you to accomplish your broader impacts activities for free either. I just want to make sure that's heard.
And one other one that a lot of people forget is something called documentation, publication, documentation, and dissemination. It's vitally important to the National Science Foundation that you get out those results of the research. And that means publishing costs. Sometimes it means data manipulation costs. So don't forget about that, because we want you to do that. That's very important to NSF. There's a question.
In the budget justification, do we need to spell out contingency plans in case we don't hire as many grad students as we need, so we're going to put the money into something else to compensate for that? Or
Well, we do. There is a whole section, not that I'm going to get into this, in the cost principles that talk about contingencies, but those tend to be for very, very large projects and would typically mention that actually in the solicitation. But on your garden variety grant, the reality is if there is an award made, very likely, what the program officer would say is rebudget, unless there is something very, very compelling that happened, and then you should be getting in touch with your program officer anyway.
Yeah, we know those things are going to change. That's okay.
Yeah. So those are the areas of costs. A number of years ago, our IG here said, you give them 3 pages, not enough. We agreed. And so we made it that you can use up to 5 pages to justify that budget. Again, very important. If you have any sub-recipients or subawards, they also get up to 5 pages. Use these 5 pages well, because again, it's documenting need for those costs. I mentioned that we have to know whether you have the adequate resources to carry out the project as proposed. And I mentioned that there was another section in which you can do that. And it's called facilities, equipment, and other resources. And for many years at NSF, and for the record, since 1960, we have always asked for facility information, because this information tells us not that you have a computer on your desk, but that you have pieces of equipment, you have resources either at your institution or at collaborating organizations that will be provided to that project that will help meet the scope of that research. So we have guidance in here. Again, it's not about, I got a computer on, we know you have that. This is specific facilities, equipment, or other resources that are actually tied to that scope of work. Note to self, if you put that in there, we expect to see it if an award is made. And our program officers, for example, you could say we're going to provide 5 graduate students, and we're not going to charge the National Science Foundation. And that is voluntary, uncommitted cost sharing, and absolutely acceptable, by the way. But when they're looking at that annual project report, they're going to say, I don't see any students that they promised. Now, there may be a reason in that year. It may have been too late in the cycle, but the bottom line is this is very important information. And again, it's not just your institution, it's any of the institutions that you're working with, either as subawards or separately submitted collaborative proposals on that award itself. So this particular part of, and by the way, this is also a federal-wide requirement. It is something that is included in grants.gov as well. Biographical sketch. One of the other parts of the review criteria say, okay, does the individual or team have the necessary qualifications to carry out the research as proposed? And that's what we use. We're not looking at the project description for that. We're looking at the biographical sketch, which is required for every individual that's identified as a senior or key person. You're going to hear a lot more about this tomorrow, but just let me emphasize that we ask for some basic information about you, some basic information about your education and training. We ask for very basic information about any organizational, institutional, or professional appointments or positions. We added positions, for example, because we know some of our small businesses, appointments don't mean anything to them. Now you say, I have no clue what the difference is between an academic appointment and an organizational appointment. Well, we've solved that problem too, because we now have a link, click on the term, in the PAP guide, and it's going to provide you a government-wide definition of what that means. So helpfully for you, that will help you for helping to do other proposals to other federal science agencies as well. But I am going to talk a great deal about the rest of this. Stay tuned. I keep getting you psyched up for other sessions that are in our update section tomorrow as well. So stay tuned for that, particularly about this little thing called Malign Foreign Talent Recruitment Program, because there's going to be a lot in that section, as well as Science CV. Yay, Bart, our colleagues from NIH, because you must use Science CV to submit your proposal to the National Science Foundation. And yes, NSF is requiring use of Science CV and NIH system before NIH is requiring you to use their own system. Just a pat on the back to NSF. Current and pending other support. Really, really important information, also required for every senior key person. What do we use this for? Okay, this isn't specifically called out as an item per se in our merit review criteria as something you have to address, but we sure as heck want to know if the individual has the capacity to carry out that research based on all current, pending, other is the NIH term, support that you have. And so you're going to providing all of the projects, proposals or projects that you currently have current or pending, as well as any in-kind contributions. I'm going to be spending some time on that as well tomorrow. What we use it for, again, is do you have the necessary capacity to do what you say you're going to do with that proposal? You're already funded for 12 months. Well, what is the likelihood that we're going to say, okay, great, they're going to have time? They're not. So that is what we're looking at it for. We're also looking at it for any overlap or duplication with the project being proposed. Again, this section of the proposal also must be submitted in Science CV. Synergistic activities. This is not new to NSF, but I'm going to talk about tomorrow how we're implementing 2 new government-wide templates for the biographical sketch and current pending other support. And because they are not covered in the biographical sketch, and we still want that information, we have added it now as another new document that must be identified by any senior or key person. So it's not, people have said, oh, why not create a new format for us? What we've heard from you faculty out there is that you hate formats. You'd rather just give me a page and tell me how to use it, and I'll upload it as a PDF. So that's exactly what we have done. And in that one page, and yes, it will be auto compliance checked, so when you try to add more, it won't let you. You have to list up to 5 distinct examples, and what they are a demonstration of the broader impacts of the individual's professional and scholarly activities. Again, this is a section we've had in our bio sketch for a very long time. What are, oh, the last bullet, don't read that one. Not right. You have up to 1 page and up to 5 examples to do that. Now, why is it so important in terms of format? Because senior management wanted to make sure there was equity between an early career and someone more experienced. And they were worried that they would put 45 very small examples on there if you were somebody very experienced, and someone who was less experienced or an early career would be like, well, I just don't have that many. I'm just starting. So senior management weighed that heavily and said 1 page, 5 distinct examples. And one of them, for example, I hate giving examples because honestly, then you get it parroted right back to you. But I'll just give you an example of what you couldn't do before, but you can now. A distinct example is I have been a peer reviewer for a federal agency. Okay, that shows you are giving back to the community. Well, now you can say, I've been a peer reviewer, and guess what? I believe so much in this importance of giving back that I've done it for NSF, NIH, DOE, and EPA. And so now you could use that space, as long as it's still 5 distinct examples, to more fully explain what those actual synergistic activities are. And now I'm going to turn it over to the next speaker.
All right, so we're going to talk about special information and supplementary docs. So these are the extra things that get added to your proposal that include things like letters of collaboration, the mentoring plans, which we'll get into in a minute, and data management and sharing plans. So these are things that are reviewed, so your ad hoc reviewers and panelists do see them. And let's walk through them. So letters of collaboration. The PAP guide includes recommended language for what those letters should look like. If you're collaborating with someone, they're going to provide something. There's a statement that says, I will do what this proposal says I will do. It cannot be a cheerleading letter, right? It can't be like, oh my God, Dr. Spinu does the best work ever and he should be funded.
I'm the governor of this state and I say fund this person. That's what we used to get a lot of.
So not allowed. Some solicitations do allow for a little bit of variation from this letter. Again, make sure you're reading that in the solicitation, but it should be a pretty blanket statement, and still, even those that allow deviation should not be endorsing. Really, you want the collaborative activities to be described in the project description or the facilities, equipment, and other resources. And I always like to remind people that facilities, equipment, and other resources can include personnel, right? There are a lot of things that can be included in that. So what are the contributions, permission to access a site or a facility, offers to furnish samples, logistical support, mentoring of students somewhere else, all of this. But again, make sure there might be requirements in the solicitation that...
Can I just add one point to that? So this truly is language that we give. We are doing technology, innovation, and partnerships. We are greatly expanding the kinds of organizations that NSF is dealing with. And when you get, especially these wonderful collaborations with industry, well, we happen to know that industry doesn't like this language because they want to be a lot more precise about what they are going to provide. And so we understand that. And NSF, especially, it's on, they're submitting it, it's on their letter. We would not reject or not accept if one of your collaborators provided information that did not use this particular format, because they have to be in accordance with their company's policies and procedures, or even someone who feels that they have to say more. The only thing we don't want it doing is really being used as a justification to get around the 15-page project description limitation.
Yeah,
So
I always point PIs to the point that it says should and not must in the PAP guide.
Yep.
Okay, so mentoring plans. Many of you are probably familiar with the mentoring plans requirement for postdoctoral scholars, and now in the 24 PAP guide that's been expanded to include graduate students. So if you're including funding to support graduate students or postdoc scholars on those lines in the budget,
G1 and G3.
Thank you. They must include a description of the mentoring activities for those individuals. I say on the line in the budget because sometimes a postdoc is the PI or a postdoc is one of the co-PIs, and it's not required or even allowed in that case. So these proposed mentoring activities are going to be evaluated as part of the process. So the expansion to graduate students is new. This should be one mentoring plan for the postdocs and the graduate students combined, and it is one page, and it is for all of the institutions that are involved in that project. I could probably talk forever about what makes a strong mentoring plan. I think we'll get to that probably later. But I will at least say, if you know, it should be right for the project, it should be right for the institution, and if you have a named student or postdoc, it should be right for that student and postdoc. What do they want to do? Okay. I think we'll cover a lot of that later. Oh, and let's talk more about that. So, as I said, it should provide things like counseling, training and preparation, training responsible for professional practices. If you have a postdoc or a student who you know doesn't want to go into academia, they want to go work for a volcano observatory or go work for industry, hopefully a strong mentoring plan includes those activities, includes a way for that postdoc or student to be involved with that during their time with you. Right? You want them to publish and present. Maybe they want to be a teacher. They want to go to a teaching institution. It should offer guidance and ways for them to explore their teaching and mentoring skills. And you should provide opportunities for collaboration in whatever venue they want to do.
B1 and B3, sorry, my brain had fart.
Okay, the data management and sharing plan. Every proposal is required to include as a supplementary doc a data management and sharing plan. Management and sharing, those are two very key terms in this plan. So that plan should describe how the project will conform to the policy, and it will be reviewed. And panels take this really seriously and reviewers take it really seriously. And some divisions have specific policies to that division. So again, just to use the Division of Earth Sciences as an example, we have a separate policy that is referenced in our solicitations that you should take a look at. It talks about certain repositories where certain data types should go, also things that we fund to help you curate your data and your samples. And so all those resources might be available in your division's specific data management and sharing plan pages, so make sure you look for that. Okay. Oh, and there's more at this website here. Please visit it to learn more, and at your divisions. Again, there's a lot of detail depending on what kind of science you do. Okay, that's basically all we have for our slides. I will reiterate, ask early, ask often. We are here to answer your questions, but the entire agency is here to answer your questions back at home, and probably no more than all of us. So these are some websites to help. nsf.gov/staff. You can find the people that you want to talk to, look for us by Directorate, or come join us, because it's a super great place to work. Thanks. Okay.
We do still have some time for questions. So in the room, if you want to come to one of the mics, we have some time for questions.
We have a taker. Couple.
Go ahead, sir.
Could you please clarify with maximum 2 months support? Let's say if I get 4 projects and I want to spend 1 month per each, it would result in 4 months support total per year.
No, that's 2 months per year across all NSF-funded projects. Again, you can ask for more, and once you go over that 2 months, you really have to start justifying, because the bottom line is the official language states you can ask for more, and it must be included if you receive an award on the NSF-funded budget, meaning the NSF program officer approved it. So sorry, once you've gone beyond that 2 months, you've gone beyond what you're allowed to have, and you have to really be justifying why you need more.
Thank you.
Hi, this may sound a little naive, but it's okay because I'm early career, so. How do you balance doing a collaborative proposal and asking for what you need. Because I got a little disheartened early on that seeing some colleagues that constantly have to, or they think they have to sacrifice their summer salaries or the number of graduate students because they're working with different universities and other faculty, and you have multiple co-PIs, and then all of a sudden the budget seems too big. So how do we manage that?
Talk to the program director is going to always be my first answer. They might have a perception that it's too big, but we know that science costs money. That's our job. And big teams cost money. But if that big team is what it takes, and again, remember I said in the project description, when you're describing who is doing what and why they're necessary to do the work, all of that goes into how we evaluate whether something is too big, quote unquote, or not. Sure, there might be actual budget caps in a program, but I think have a conversation. Don't try to shortchange yourself, because again, I think Jean sort of mentioned this in talking about budget review. It's entirely possible someone will read a proposal and be like, they didn't ask for enough for what they want to do.
That's often one of the comments that's made.
I will also say that I think one of the most common mistakes for early career folks is to propose their whole career in one proposal, right? And so sometimes it's useful to take a step back and look and think, is there a way for me to make this into pieces, right? This is the thing I need to do first. That's one proposal. And then I join with these people and do this. So that's certainly something that I see a lot. They're like, I'm going to solve this entire thing. We're like, well, okay. Like, do it one step at a time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we have time for one more question. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for the great discussion. I wanted to ask you to elaborate on a comment you made regarding the proposals with no deadline. So you said something about you have to spend out your funds by August. So just in general, I'm wondering, are there better and worse times of the year to submit to those rolling deadline programs?
Sure.
I have feelings about this too.
So on October 1st is the start of the
Theoretical start of the federal So, no, I mean, sometimes we don't. If you look at our years and if that intro slide, it's usually months and months before we actually even have a budget. So that is yes, starting October 1st.
Which means we have some deadlines, we call them critical dates, in which we have to spend out our money. Usually that's about August, generally. There's exceptions to everything at NSF, but if you're, putting in your proposal, a day before August 1st, it is not going to have that 6-month period to get reviewed in this fiscal year. You'll have to wait till next fiscal year. And so, think about, the fall and the winter is great, spring. If you're putting it in the summer, then it's going to go to the next year. And so you can listen to the news as well as we do and find out when, the Congress and presidents, made the budget and signed the budget and appropriated the budget. But we're not quite there yet, and it's getting late. So we're, it is what it is. We work together as best we can. But if you're thinking no deadline, I would try to do it earlier so that people have time to review your proposal and not make any rush decisions, because they won't.
I'm going to argue that you, just as someone who manages no deadlines, not to disagree, but I would say talk to the program, because there's, especially for those of us that use ad hoc review, we need that time actually to send things out for review. And so it
just
matter
means
when
it
it
may be
comes in.
funded later.
Might get funded later.
Exactly.
I always tell people, because it takes on average 6 months to review something, think about what you want your start date to be. Count backwards, 6 months. Submit by at least then. Don't worry about, know that it'll take plus or minus, but I wouldn't stress out too much about when. Submit when it's ready. Submit when it's ready.
In fact, that's why we moved, was we found NSF was driving submission, and folks felt that they weren't ready, but they were submitting it anyway because there was an NSF deadline.
Okay, please join me in thanking the panel.